stabbing the back of a lot of non-whites and tell us how horrible we are. And we can look from like what was it, about 2012, 2013, where racism, systemic racism, white supremacy, all of this shit in the news, it just like went way, way, way up. A lot of things happened with the traditional legacy media that made us not really trust them for good reason. I wouldn't say the outcome has been better, because now you have a bunch of retards that are disseminating information online, which, you know, it's propaganda, and I just don't think stupid people should be disseminating information, period.
Okay, how do you feel now about this, just for all of us? Like, how do you feel now about what this guy is saying, Mikhail? Do you think it's a strictly racial thing? Do you think it's a culture thing, a mix? How do you feel?
I think it's large. Well, with America, it's largely cultural. Like, despite your race, I mean, we can look at like what's happened in Europe. I mean, even with like the communism versus you know, the people that weren't communist, how they would fight. They would fight. It was very political. It was not racial in nature whatsoever. But it was horrible. And so you did have like the reactionary right. We can look at like Francisco Franco. We can look at even Mussolini, who was a socialist.
Before he became a fascist.
He was a fascist, obviously. And then we can look at Hitler, who obviously it was a version of fascism. But I mean, I look at fascism as like a wartime government. It's nothing that you want to see as, you know, being the ideal for your society. But it makes sense how that happened when it happened.
Do you believe it's warranted in America based on what you feel of the other parts of whiteness, quote unquote?
I mean, that's always a question, but I mean, I do think the left, they cross boundaries far more than the right does.
Just recall, the Nazis are progressives.
Well, I do think that the Nazis, and you know,
It's progressive. It's left.
No, well, I did say that earlier. They were progressive in a way, but we're judging like a country almost a century ago.
You have to judge other countries by the value standards of America. So you have to look at it from our lens, our values, and then judge other countries by that.
I mean, to look at, to think that like Franklin D. Roosevelt was like like even closely resembled the progressives of today is fucking retarded.
Yeah, but the same thing from the other side.
No, we gotta get this definition right. So progressivism means they're progressing us away from our traditional culture, our traditions, and our constitution. So progressing us towards whatever their made up conglomeration of government will be. You know, we all allege them to be socialist communists. They're really, in my opinion, they are the fascists. Believe it or not, they work hand in hand with big government to be able to with big business to be able to keep us under control. However, in Germany, we can't frame progressives here in America as it would be progressivism in Germany or even in Nazi Germany. Now, Nazism is on the left. It's a collectivism type of idea. Ideas and ideologies on the right largely lean towards family-centric or individual-centric, and it can blend between those two.
And let's get the definition.
Come on, the piggybacking needs to stop, man.
Yeah, let's get the definition of conservative correct. It doesn't mean conserve like we're conserving energy or putting something in a jar and saving it. It means conservative as in I'm going to make a conservative estimate. Or in the opposite of put a liberal coat of sunscreen on your body. It's the opposite of that. It means well measured, it means well thought out, it means rational.
Well, classically, what it means is applying old solutions to new problems. If you look at Edmund Burke, you look at the conservatives, the original conservative thought, they're saying, look, we have some ways of doing things that make sense, and getting these things to work is really hard, and so we should try, when we make changes to society, which we have to make them as modest as possible, and draw within the lines as far as possible.
I just want
Drag
to
your
point out,
figures.
The Nazis were not.
Can we let King Solomon jump in after
Again, this is
Jason?
number one.
The Nazis were not progressives, but they were not conservatives. Okay, I think it's fair to say the Nazis were not
They
conservatives.
hated conservatives. In fact, they despised
Yes,
them.
in fact, they despise them.
Correct.
I think it's fair to say they are on the right. That they have many classic right-wing memes that they drew on, and right-wing themes. The purity of the nation and all of these kinds of things are generally considered to be right-wing. But not everyone on the right is a conservative. And I think that's where we need to come back to what conservatism is about. The Nazis were not conservatives.
yeah, price fixation is definitely not a conservative idea.
Let's let this black bastard King Solomon. Go ahead,
King
black bastard.
So here's the thing. When it comes to, and this is why, respectfully, and I'll answer the question in this and what I'm saying here. This is why I think ultimately conservatism, liberal, all of that stuff fails, and we need to get back to Christ. So when it comes to that question, is your race, religion, or your politics? I'm realizing for myself, and I have been for a very long time, that my religion, or essentially Christ, is the most important, because what we've seen in terms of the United States, our politicians and our government, and how they, both sides, not just liberals, but conservatives too, how they've essentially created this environment where respectfully folks like Mikhail and others who have diametrically opposed value systems to us, conservatives and liberals, Democrats and Republicans, have created over the last 30 to 40 years. It started with Jimmy Carter, but each of those presidents have essentially imported people who are our enemies, our sworn enemies, into this country. And I think at the core reason why there's been this confusion is because we have gotten away from Christ. Because we've gotten away from what made this country what it was. I've realized myself, I'm becoming more and more, I wouldn't say a Christian nationalist or Christian national, because I think right now it's too associated with white nationalism. They're both conflated. But more and more, I'm realizing all of this political divide or political dynamics, they're all for naught if they're not spiritually grounded. They're not.
So I think you agree that like the last thing you'd want is like we can look at how horrible the Nazis were, but we can also look at Pol Pot, who killed like a third of his population. We can look at I forget how many tens of millions of people were killed in the Soviet Union.
Just a moron.
Yeah, and these are not religious people.
Liberal Democrat socialists.
Same with China.
Tax and
It's just like okay. I mean, at the end of the day, like I do think that our religious foundation does. It does, and a lot of like white nationalists and I would talk shit to the gripers and these quote unquote Christian nationalist trad cats like that faggot Nick Fuentes. You know, he's just like, we're a white nation. Like, shut up, Spick. What you're describing is third world nationalism. We don't need that in the United States.
But Pepe King, didn't you see that Trump started this, someone help me with what it's called. It's like a faith department, like a whole,
yeah, and he put Paula White, the fucking heretic, that fucking heretic, he put her in charge of that.
He's trying to, who he put in, I'm not, I don't know, so I'm not going to comment good, bad. Just the fact that he had this approach to bring faith back. And I will tell you, because I've listened maybe to 4 speeches, like one-on-one speeches where I've been in the room with our Speaker of the House, with Mike Johnson, and he's very into faith and very into God, and making clear that religion and just how our founders believed in God.
Yeah.
And he pushes Mike Johnson's, and I just think the world of him, and he's very sincere about it, in a soft-spoken way. And I think we're seeing now a push to accept faith, that it's okay to have your faith, and that our country began that way. I'm not of your religion, but my religion was part also in the beginning of the founding of the nation. And the fact that we're coming back to liking people that have faith, and that it's cool to have faith, because it was pushed away so much before. I think, and we're seeing it again, not just from Trump, but also from Congress, and it's a positive.
Well, and Abby, I appreciate you so much. I do think though that our politicians are the center, especially boomers, are the center of the crisis that is starting to form in this country, when Americans are looking up and realizing, 1, they don't control their environments around them. 2, the resources that their country has don't seem to be benefiting them and seem to be benefiting every other group or interest group than them. And I would argue, Abby, the reason why that has happened over these decades is because there hasn't been a solid spiritual foundation that has guided us as a country. And now we're getting the consequences of that. And you're seeing it in the Zoomers. I think, Pepe, you were the one that pointed it out. When you look at the data with the Zoomers are starting to adopt, because of the consequences, you have these young kids starting to adopt viewpoints that would have been abhorrent 40 years ago. To even think that some of these kids are saying the things that are coming out of their mouth. The reason why we're seeing that is not only because of rebellion, which is natural. Young kids like to rebel against older folks, but it's because they don't have that optimistic future, right? That other previous generations got to live. And I feel for them, because when I see them and I see the opportunities are not there, like previous generations had, I get why they're angry. I get why they're confused, right? So my thing, Abby, to tie it back to what we were previously talking about, because you brought up faith, and obviously faith is what I think is going to ultimately save this country. There should be, and I do mean this with respect, but I have to be honest, there should be no reason why a person like Mikhail is in America. There should be no reason why a person like him calls himself an American. At all. At all. It's that simple.
No, so be nice.
Because I'm white.
Because I'm white, you're not. That's the.
Opportunities have always
Because I'm white and you're not.
Like Miguel, you shouldn't be in this country. You know that.
Everything in this country is really about being white. That's what this country's.
I know King. He's like a Nigerian Christian.
Yes, I'm a Protestant. Proudly.
The reality is,
What was
whites in this
Christianity
country,
were you raised
we
under?
don't want,
Yeah, so too.
as whites in this country,
So I
I'm
was
going to
raised.
speak as
Hold on,
white.
Miguel, just let me.
As whites in this country, as someone who
Just real quick. Let me quick. So
I didn't kick him, I just moved him down. I'll bring him back up.
No, you good, Joe. You good. So Pepe, I was raised in 2 Protestant traditions of the Celestial Church of Christ, which is a Nigerian denomination, heavily focused on spiritual work, stuff like that. And then I was raised as an evangelical Protestant. So I went to a typical evangelical church. I love both of those traditions. It shaped me and my Christianity and how I look at God and how I love Christ. Those 2 traditions, which are both technically Protestant is what shaped me and how I view all this.
So I'm guessing as a Catholic, we disagree a lot. But
Yes.
yeah,
But
it's fine. We won't do it here.
I will take Catholics. I will side with Christendom over our eternal enemies. I will
No,
side with all
I know,
Christendom over our
it's the
eternal
same
enemies.
way. It's the same way. It's like it's kind of something I was expressing earlier. Like so, like there were the Chaldeans that and the Christian Lebanese that were in Catholic school with me. They like but even if I look at like the diaspora here in Scottsdale that don't like the closest shopping center here to me, literally where I can walk to is it's all Chaldean owned. You know, these are very nice people. I dated a couple of Chaldean women when I was younger. You know, I don't. I'm not gonna lie. They are different for sure. You know, but I would say that they are.
Because the J word.
They're a non-threatening group, at least in my opinion. And you know, I don't. It's like, who would I side with? Like a fellow white Bosnian or Albanian that, I don't know, you know, of course they're not in Europe, but like a Chechen or a Dagestani. No, like these people are so much different than us. These are, in a lot of ways, I look at it, and I, like Mikhail, I'm not saying this, like, I'm not trying to dog on you.
I'm just waiting on an opportunity because apparently everybody is.
No, you can speak uninterrupted after me. I look at Muslims as like they are a group of people you should never like really allow to be more than a couple percentage of the population.
That's right. That's right.
No, I'm dead serious. It's not.
We all are.
It's not because I hate them. My first best friends that I met here in Arizona when I moved here when I was 9 years old, you know, Farhan and Sono, they were two Muslim Pakistanis whose dad was a neurosurgeon who, ironically, had brain cancer and died when they moved here. I don't dislike these people. My first roommate in college was a Muslim. I don't have bad experiences in my personal life with Muslims. In fact, I would say they're actually, because of how morally rigid they are, they're actually very, they're people that you can kind of count on. And, but if I look at the patterns, you know, globally and how everything kind of plays out with them, like I just cannot trust them. At the end of the day, like, why should I not trust a Middle Eastern Christian over a Middle Eastern Muslim?
Of course, you should always trust your fellow Christian if they're truly Christian. I mean, this is the person you share a spirit with and a divine spirit with, apparently. So, ideologically, yes, they would have your loyalty more than someone who, for example, like Jewish, who doesn't necessarily have your interest in mind. Of course. I mean, that just goes without saying, right?
How's that go without saying, Mikhail?
Let me go.
No,
You guys can't be doing interrupting the values
of America. And that's the difference. We're not trying to change America.
This is bad, man.
We're only trying to make America better. I know you're.
Well, hold on, L. There is a level. Like even the K word. I won't.
Yeah, don't.
I know I won't, but I would say.
I'll remind you of George Washington's letter to the Rhode Island synagogue. You know, like, it's just bullshit, Mikhail. I will say something though with respect.
I didn't finish.
I do want to share this, and I would welcome anyone to go to the Museum of the History of the American Revolution, because it lays out who was here in the beginning. I was actually going to say something you might like, Mikhail, but you can be an asshole if you want. If you go to the museum, there's a section that shows what religions and who was here in the founding. Obviously, there was a big group of Quakers and different sects of Protestants that had come over. They actually had a coin that was a Muslim coin that they found. They had Shabbat candlesticks. They had different things from the Catholic Church, like robes and such. They show all the different people that were here in the founding years of the country, and try to emphasize that there were different religions that had come here.
Yeah, but that.
Thanks.
Well, some of the founding fathers did say. But some of the founding fathers did say they called them Mohammedans at the time.
Of course, like respectfully, this country was
I'm not
for
trying.
Christian.
No one.
No, they were like
As much as the interlocutors here want to continue to try to make this an Islam, what was a Western or civilization clash.
No, I don't.
Go see it for yourself,
They're
Miguel.
just addicted to a civilization clash narrative.
This is, you don't have to believe me. Go look at the museum.
I'm not denying what you're saying.
Mikhail, but our
I just don't find it
founding
relevant.
fathers said they were.
I just really don't find it.
And by the way, so is the letter that Washington
Nice
wrote
trivia,
to the
but I don't
Rhode
find
Island
it relevant.
synagogue.
Okay, but our founding fathers did say that they were open to Mohammedans,
It's not the
Muslims.
Look at that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that you wouldn't see the
Okay, they let her. Okay, but
Because
even
it
amongst
excludes you.
Christians, but even amongst okay,
These values exclude you, Mikhail. You're very
No, they-
rigid and not
No, they
wanting to
don't.
this.
That is
sure,
not true.
not necessarily true.
You have a Catholic trying to tell you the history of America. What you just said is not true.
Look at that
The
tip.
founding fathers founded this country for Christians.
What a
Period.
No,
loser.
a lot of them were
Within
deists.
Christianity.
No,
That is a
this is
fact.
where we disagree. No, this is where we
The
disagree.
Presbyterians wrote extensively
King
on it.
Solomon,
The
you
Presbyterians,
have
the British,
No, they were not Christian nationalists.
King Solomon. The thing I think you have to
Stop
understand.
interrupting me, Jason. Stop interrupting me. Pepe, at the end of the day, it is the Christians who are going to save this country, specifically Protestants, not you niggas. So I'm not
Fine,
worried
but if we're talking about that, okay,
Look,
just let Jason
This is just not informed, all right? There are many Christian countries. There were Christians in England, all right? Why didn't they all become American?
What?
I mean, why did the Americans chart their own?
Jason,
Why did
I'll
the
answer your
Americans-
question. At the time of the,
You
let me answer your
you
question.
can, okay.
I can. At the
Why
time
did
of
the
the founding,
Americans chart-
98%
why did
of
the
America was Protestant
Why did the
Christian.
Americans chart
Jason,
their own flag?
This is
Okay.
insanity. What
If
are you talking,
Christian
Jason?
was
Are
the
you
matter.
serious right now?
Okay.
When you look at the 13 founding
If you look-
Don't
13
forget, you
founding
have to remember,
colonies,
just like an
Political
investigator of a
development.
crime.
Basically,
benefits?
almost no Christian
Follow the
countries
money and the
became
power.
like America. All right,
America
until they
is
were
a
forced to.
Christian country. It was founded on Christianity.
But
98.
Christianity is not what is important.
No, you're
It's
not
not
making any
that-
points. Look,
it's not
98%.
It's not what's important because if you,
Of the
It's not the
country
principle
was
driving
Christian.
the country.
flip side is not.
Let me make this point.
But
Jason,
that's true.
the entire
but the flip
point-
side,
The entire
does
point
not
of the Second Amendment. The entire point of the Second Amendment was to allow for different flavors of Protestantism to flourish in this country. Jason, you have to know the history of it.
But I do know it, and that's
No, you
not that
don't.
you're
They were not accepting of
Second
Catholics.
Amendment.
They were not accepting of Catholics. Like they were not. No. Hold on.
Except in
They were against. They were okay. Yes,
They
at
were
the
against
time
Catholics,
they were
yes.
against. They were against religious persecution. But at the time, did they see Catholics? And you have to understand, these are largely people from the British Isles that were WASPs. They did not look at, like, for example, the Irish Catholics as being, the same as them, for lack of a better
They do
term.
not trust Catholics, yes, because Catholics had a political alignment with the Pope, and they did not trust Catholics
they didn't
because
trust
of
the
that.
Church of England either.
They did not trust the Catholics in. The English also did not trust the Catholics for the same reason. Okay.
Largely because Catholics were
They're not
persecuting
getting it.
Protestants in Europe, and then when Catholics came here, Protestants were persecuting Catholics here as well
I.e.
in
Ireland.
What do you
America.
guys call Quakers?
They're Protestants.
They're not Protestant. Are they Protestants?
Yes,
Of course
they
they
are.
are.
Oh my
Are you
gosh.
serious?
Yeah.
I don't think they're Protestants. I think they're like.
Jason, this is
Yeah, save me your bow and your son. Look
Yeah,
at it
they're
every
not
time you get
Protestants.
frustrated
Are you
when a
serious?
laptop
I
repairs
mean,
and
if they are, that's fine. I mean,
You have the Quakers, the Puritans, the Congressionalists, the Presbyterians, and I forget the last one.
The
Those were the
Baptists.
main groups
Calvinists?
outside,
Calvinists?
my bad, and the Baptists. Those were the main groups, Pepe.
well, the Calvinists are pieces of shit. They should never have been allowed in our fucking country. But
The Methodists
That's
and
fine.
the
Yeah, but
Don't
I
forget
had
the
a Methodist
Mennonites.
at the end. But
Yeah.
Pepe, those were the groups that were trying to, and of course our
That's
Catholic brothers and sisters too. I know, I get you guys are there too. But Pepe, those are the groups trying to mainly get religious freedom, right? And who were trying to make it so that they could practice their own version of Christianity without persecution.
Norman raises a great point. The Mennonites and the Amish, like we have examples of Christians that have existed here since the founding that still live in their culture.
They really live in their
Yep.
culture. By the way, they make great shoe fly pie if you ever go to Lancaster.
and they make great
I
shit.
see Mennonites. I haven't seen them in a few
And
years.
the Amish
Yeah,
chicken
but they-
is no good.
Now,
They don't want to tear down America is the point. They don't want to convert us,
No.
and they
Oh,
don't
okay,
want
just
to
for
merge
the-
into
They just want to not
Just
drive
like the
cars. They want to.
Mohammedans.
There was a Mennonite community around me. I haven't seen them out lately.
Do you want to know one of the reasons that Pennsylvania went red?
It's
Because the
Amish.
Yep,
the
I heard
Amish
about
got
that.
registered.
Yeah.
There's
I want to
one
bring
guy,
in the Catholics.
Scott Kessler went and signed up, went all over Lancaster to the Mennonites and the Amish, and he got them registered to vote. They never voted before.
Yeah, he wrote it
So I do
down.
want to introduce when the Catholics came in a big bunch was at the time of the Louisiana Purchase at 1803, only 15 years after the United States of America began, and it ushered in many Catholics from New Orleans and all along the South down here, French colonists. So it was only
It was
within
originally
15 years.
Spanish. Like the so you had the Spanish
Thank you.
in Louisiana, and they had the decree of graces,
Let me
where
clear
they
that up.
said any European that was of Catholic faith could immigrate there. And so like half my family, they are Acadian, and so most of I always thought it was weird, but my grandmother was saying how they did not, her parents did not let English people in the house, in Nova
My
Scotia.
Irish
They
parents
fucking
said that
hated
too.
it.
Let me
Say
clear
that
that Spanish
a lot,
part up.
or
Hold
is
on.
that
You're close
just
though.
me?
Okay, it's originally a French colony. However, the Spanish won the territory and controlled it for nearly 30 years. When Napoleon comes back and takes the territory back, he then sells it to Thomas Jefferson only a year or two later to pay off debts. So it was under Spanish control. And a little tidbit is the French Quarter is actually, in New Orleans, is actually Spanish architecture. And that explains why you think there's so many Spaniards from there.
That's right.
I love our history. I love Christendom history. I really do.
Yeah, but the point is, it's Christendom
Just
history.
Islamic history.
There's
Yeah, that's why I say
all of these
Christendom
things. I know. I couldn't pronounce it, but you could because you're more learned than me. But that's why it's important. Like we had, what's his face here? He's still here, Mikael. He's a smart guy to a point.
So
And he's
stupid, it's
going
not
on and
Christian
on
history,
about the
it's
systematic
Masonic
whiteness
history.
and this and that. It's like, that is what retarded people talk about because they're looking for an answer to why they lose elections, why they can't seem to gather a following. That's what they're talking about.
It's okay to
The
be
people
white.
that, of course it
No one's
is.
denying.
Of course it's okay to be
That's
white.
not the point. Dr.
No,
continues to
no,
straw man and wash down
I'm
the
gonna
point.
straw
Because
man.
he either can't understand the sophistication of the point, or he has.
How likely is that?
I think
How
it's very
participation and you
and I continue to point it out every time you ask.
and they never will, Mikhail.
Mikhail,
You already said that we don't see a trajectory, a future where sub-Saharan Africans become 70% of the country. So
I don't see
simply
that.
by that answer, you
Yeah,
are
but that,
saying
but it, no,
that
that's
if we
untrue.
did see a trajectory where that did lead to 70% of America being sub-Saharan African, even if they embrace everything about being white, you would still not
untrue.
be okay with it.
No,
Otherwise,
no.
you would
What I
establish a
said,
contingent.
Mikhail, what I said
You're gonna
was,
wanna
which is
reword
the
it.
truth. No, I'm going to word it exactly the same way as I did earlier. What I said was that the statistical representation of people who would uphold that particular cultural value